Ooh, this one is really heavy. Interesting one. It's a time for package from China. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we are going to be taking a close look at the RG Cube XX. So with Anbernic releasing a gazillion different handhelds nowadays, I must say that sometimes we do have this overall, let's say, design that we have seen before. And this is one of them. So we've been reviewing the Cube version with Android built in. But they're going into this lineup where they're having the same kind of hardware specs, but also software-wise. And that is quite interesting because we're having a universal piece of software. So what I understand of, if you're going to be updating one, you can actually update all of them. But now we can just choose which device we want when it comes to the form factor. So when it comes to this Cube model, I must say that I just love this thing for the form factor itself. But the simple reason when I'm holding it, it's very comfortable. And that is one of the positive, just one of the very positive sides about this product. However, when you're looking at a D-pad, they're having the floating D-pad situation. I think it was also the Sega Genesis 6 pad that has the same configuration. However, you're going to be hating or loving it. There are so many different D-pads out there, and it's okay at this point. We're having these very nice, let's say, Nintendo Switch looking joysticks with a click underneath and beautiful RGB lighting. So when you're going to be looking into the overall design, I can tell you that when the ABXY buttons, they do have a very long travel, a very nice touch. So holding it, I don't have the problem that my thumbs are bumping into the analog stick. So the overall design is great. We're having this very strange looking display resolution, and this is one of the things that you're going to be hating or loving it. So when you're looking at the shoulder buttons, they're mostly like membrane, so no micro switches over here. On top, volume control, on and off switch. We're having USB-C for charging, then the reset button, so that's very convenient if you need to reset it or a hard reset, and then HDMI out. But how about out of the box? So when you're looking at this, you can see you have different kinds of options. So let's do a quick overview. So having over here the game room. With the game room, we're having different kind of emulators. This thing can run all kinds of old school stuff, old PCs. Think about, or PCs at least, exactly like game consoles. And with the game consoles like Atari, you name it. So they're not showing because there are no files on that. But I can tell you, looking at the previous model, we can play all kinds of cool stuff. If you're going to be looking into the second menu, having here through RetroArch, and RetroArch is having a way better configuration and overall performance, particularly when it comes to even some 16-bit platforms. So in here we're having the App Center with some video, ebook, apps, expert, file management and music. And then we're having favorites, recently played, search mode, and here you can just search your games, and of course the settings. And with settings we're having the system information over here that shows what kind of model we're having, and this thing has the Allwinner H700 Linux device, or at least the chipset. And there's also showcasing the firmware, or at least the software version. EO testing, this is convenient if you want to check out if something is wrong. Well, it's kind of weird that we don't have the option for the analog sticks. You can see that at this point they're mapped to the ABXY buttons, so that is kind of weird. Start select for going back, and the LED settings, we can turn it on and off if you want to, so that is also very cool. Let's see what we're having more for colors. You can see we're having all kinds of different colors that we can actually do with this. Whoa, we're having disco mode, just going to be living on the rainbow. We can even adjust the brightness, so that's kind of interesting. So if you don't want to have this very bright LEDs underneath, you can just speed it up, and you can even also like lower it down. So a lot of different options for the LEDs. Language, so let's look at that. Over here, having all kinds of different languages nowadays. And yeah, there is a lot of stuff we can actually check out and change out. But however, let's get into the gaming and let's showcase how the overall emulation performance is. We do have two speakers at the bottom and they sound absolutely great. And we have even the audio jack option if you want to connect it to headphones. And we're having two SD card slot, one for the main firmware. You can of course put some ROMs on here if you want to, and the second one you can put music or another like more ROMs. So that's kind of cool that we do have options. They're doing it quite often now with newer models when it comes to the two configuration of SD cards. And in here we're finding the game. You can see that it is squeezed to a certain point, and that is due for the perfect overall aspect ratio. But that is one of the downsides too of the display. Where it's beautiful, we don't have the problem that we don't have the aspect ratio. Pressing the M button, It'll give you different options: quick load, quick save, restart, CD control. We have video effect can be changed out. The backlight brightness can be adjusted, what kind of BIOS you want to actually use, and enable and disable the rumble functionality. But the downside is when using the normal PlayStation 1 emulator, we do have this sound delay. That is something that is very annoying and still around all of these devices of the XX series. So I find it a little bit of a downside that they still having the same problem. The rumble function seems to be working just fine. I activated it, so that's absolutely great. Joystick seems to be working. We can use the D-pad, but the overall emulation performance itself is absolutely great. So for PlayStation 1, and you know what it is? Even with this very strange display they're using and having our bezels at the bottom and the top part, I don't really find it annoying. I find it still very pleasant to actually play this. But so far, so good. But emulation of PlayStation runs perfectly. We did, yeah, or perfectly, at least so far it can be beside the audio. Okay, so out of the box, what is kind of weird, we're having over here the Varcade. In other words, what I understand of this is especially for shmups. So when you're going to be booting up a game, so let's say you're going to be booting up another game that is actually perfectly normally made for this, you're going to be opening up in the menu. We do have the option now for vertical game rotation. We can enable it and disable it. But this is the only thing that it actually does, and that is quite a little bit of a disappointment. So when it comes to having a very easy plug and play way to play, we still have the banner, so that is a quite unfortunate situation. Doesn't matter which game I'm actually going to be booting up, every single game will have this overall problem. But emulation over the arcade, there is nothing new over here, meaning that there is a lot of games that we can play. But when you're getting into Killer Instinct, Tekken, the main parts that are very difficult to emulate on these devices, that is still a general problem. For those games, we just need a mini PC solution or a Windows device. However, with the controls, I do love this because it is very convenient to play. You can just see how let's say comfortable it is when actually playing some beat 'em ups. So with overall gaming, that's great. So let's make a quick save, pressing the wrong button of course. Here we can make a quick save over here. And with loading you can see even a tiny screenshot. So that is great, and that is one of the things I love about this part. But what we're going to be doing is moving to the other part. I mean particularly when it comes to the other list of separate emulators. And this is the emulator part. Now we're going to be to the RetroArch, and here we're going to be looking into some other stuff like N64, Dreamcast, and see how that actually works out. Moving on to the N64, this is going to be a hit or miss. You can hear the audio crackling, in other words having issues. However, the gameplay in general is not super bad, so it's going to be which game you're going to be liking and playing on this. So let's say that you're going to be playing some launch titles like Diddy Kong Racing. They will run overall quite nice, but actually going to be trying to play games like Nuclear Strike, you do have a little bit of a problem there. However, the overall gameplay is good enough to really enjoy these games. By pressing the menu button, we're going to have the quick menu of the RetroArch, and this is actually not a bad thing. You can just mess around with it, you can just change things out if you want to, and of course you have the option to just quit over here. But this is like with the RetroArch, it's not having the fancy extra, let's say, overall menu. And that is one of the things I love the first part with the very easy overall, let's say, menu with the quick load, quick save. We don't have that, but let's get into some other cool stuff and let's see how Dreamcast will work. But let's move into some Sega Dreamcast. I did hear there some stuttering, so it's not going to be perfect emulation with some of the games. But the overall performance is quite good. The D-pad is perfect for fighting games. I didn't notice any weird thing going on. Sure, you can. All the other moves come out instantly. When you're getting into the gameplay, the overall performance is great. But also here we're having a bezel. The bezel looks kind of cool, to be honest. But if there is one system I don't really want to use on this, is it PlayStation Portable. With the simple reason because this is going to be looking completely deformed. Performance wise, you can already see throughout, let's say, different menus, we have a lot of hiccups. Man, the audio is nice. So let's lower the volume. But the frame skip has been able to one-time original resolution. You can see that it is having around like 50, let's say, frames per second, sometimes dips, goes up, all the craziness. Okay, this is one of those great examples where it's going to be hitting the 42 frames per second and making the game absolutely annoying to play with the stuttering. So for PlayStation emulation, it's great that we can actually use this on a device like this, but this is not the overall way to play. And also with the resolution at the display, nah, that's not something I can really enjoy. So for me, PlayStation Portable is just a no-go on this device itself. Next up, some Thomas Wave Arcade with the all-famous Dolphin Blue. For me, this is just like in general Metal Slug clone. A fun game and emulation performance, it's absolutely not bad at all. So I'm quite surprised how well it will run on this. And that is one of the many improvements that we're going to be seeing throughout the years. That games that had struggles on game boxes and many different platforms and chipset, that we can actually run it. We do still have a little bit of stuttering here and there, but not to the point of making the game completely unplayable. So this is absolutely awesome. Pressing the button again will give you the option to make a quick load, quick save, if you want to. This is a very long time that I actually showed some gameplay of a game like Quake. I can still remember having it on the Open Dingook devices. I think it was called the RG350 and a couple of them. But what is convenient, we're having more buttons. So we have different ways to play. So we can use both of the analog sticks if you want to. Oh man, it's quite, let's say, overall okay, but quite difficult to actually learn. What I personally love to prefer to play is that we're going to be using the D-pad for the basic Doom overall, let's say, configuration. But if you want to use the shoulder buttons or trigger buttons, we can actually use it, for example, with the shoulder buttons to go to the left and right strafe mode, and up and down can be used with the triggers. So the way how you can just play Quake is absolutely great and so much easier. So that's what I love about these new generation devices with the old stuff like this. But Game Boy is one of the many devices that we can actually emulate perfectly on here. And I'm guessing that we have a normal button and we're having the turbo button over here. So if you want to cheat, you can actually do that. You need to play like this because of the button configuration. But the game looks absolutely amazing on this. The RG Cube XX. This feels more like a product they already had on the shelf and just basically slapped some new parts in, because it's the same thing all over again. However, this time it's so much more consumer friendly with the menu and how you need to add stuff and everything, how it works. So when you're looking at the display, you know, it's a very niche overall, let's say, display where not a lot of games will utilize it. So for the resolution and everything, this is not the best handheld. However, I find it very comfortable and the D-pad plays very nice. And that is one of the things I do really enjoy myself with the Cube version. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what do you think of the Cube. And it will be great to see you in the next video.